which city do you think has the most promise over the next decade?
Right now, that land, 2 lakh investment is become minimum 2.5 crores to 3 crores. That's 100 to 150x.
If you had 10 crores and you had to invest it in real estate,
The remaining 4.5 to 5 crores, I would put it all in land. If you put 1 crore in Alibag in 2020, it would be 6 crores right now in 2026. Noida, I feel, has the capacity, like 20 lakhs in a day. That's pretty awesome.
if you had, let's say, 1 crore, would you put it in real estate or stocks?
This is how I would break real estate down. If you want capital appreciation, if you want rental yield, please get into student housing, get into warehouses. It's even better than Airbnb. It can go up from 9% to even 15, 16, 18%. So I'm personally not the biggest fan, unpopular opinion, not the biggest fan of Airbnbs.
What are some of the most common mistakes you've seen home buyers make in India?
At 8%, a home loan is the cheapest type of loan you can get in the country.
Have you seen even reputed builders scamming people in real estate?
If you are denied rent, you can take a non-bailable offense.
What if somebody passes away without a will?
You have to, into a million times have to.
Hi Mayank.
Hey, hi Sahil, how's it going?
Hi, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this.
Anytime.
So let's just start with a little bit about yourself. Tell us where did you grow up?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Kolaba.
Okay, in Bombay itself.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
I grew up in Kolaba, went to school here in Fort itself, then did junior college from Churchgate. Then from there I studied engineering. I went to the outskirts of Chennai to do that, and then came back and started working. My first job was a door-to-door job. I think I was there. I did that for about 6 months, 6 to 8 months. We were door-to-door, did various pin codes in Mumbai from Altamont Road to Dahisar, where we would just kind of gate crash buildings and just start pitching. Very humbling experience, and I recommend everyone should do it at least for 1 month, right? Did door-to-door, and then post door-to-door, because I wasn't getting a job, and this happens to every real estate person, right? It's always a plan B. It's a good, because there's no barrier for entry. If you don't know what to do, just enter real estate, and that's exactly what happened to me. Got into real estate. How did I get into real estate? Is after my door-to-door job, I was very burnt out. Believe me, it was very, very difficult to go door-to-door in India.
What kind of door-to-door sales was it?
It was charity. We're picking up charity for CRY, HelpAge India, and also the other teams used to do insurance. And selling insurance is very negative because you enter to instill fear on the person's.
Yeah.
Firstly, you're intruding his space. You're gate crashing his building, ringing his bell without him knowing that you're going to do so. And when you enter, you just give him a bad trip. You tell him he's going to eventually die one day, and look, he needs to have an insurance. So a brutal job, if you think about it, right? And our targets were brutal as well. We were not given any salary. We were given whatever we raised, some percentage of that. So you had to perform, meeting at least 50 to 60 people on a daily basis. So yeah, I was burnt out. Post that, one of my dad's friend, he's like, look, I'm going to buy land, and why don't you come along? Because dad was a civil engineer, so he just called my dad, and he was going to Karjat. And my dad's like, look, Mayank, you're not doing anything at home. You just, left your job and just tag along. And I've always been like an outdoorsy person. So I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I go with dad, with Mr. Singh, this uncle. And it was fun. I had a great day, in fact, because, I've always liked roaming around in the outskirts, right? Always liked trekking. I saw Mr. Singh just walking around with a broker who was extremely charismatic. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And in the entire day, I think he must have shown him about maybe 10 to 15 land options. And in the evening, over chai, after seeing all the options, we sit for chai with the broker. I'm just a spectator. This kid My dad is also a spectator and saying uncle. Then he eventually closes the land that day. He's like, okay, I'm interested in this land. Let's close it. Obviously, the actual closure takes much longer because it's land. The turnaround time to closure would take 6 months. But he shortlisted a land. Let's put it that way. And in my head, my engineering brain started calculating the amount of money the broker must have made that day, which he closed, I think, about a 5 crore land. So I'm like, okay, this broker is going to make 2% from him and 2% from um, the seller. So that's 4%, give or take, 20 lakhs. For engineers at that time, that would have been my
When
4
was
year
this?
salary. This
When
was
was
2012.
Okay.
For engineers, yeah, about 14 years ago, was it 13 to 14?
Yeah.
For engineers at that point of time, our starting salaries would be 25 grand a month, say 3 lakhs in a year. That would have been like my 6 year salary without growth.
Right.
Like 20 lakhs in a day. That's pretty awesome. Of course, I didn't know the issues related to land brokerage, but as a nascent person just watching, that felt really cool. And then I'm like, the next day, I'm like, let's try getting into this, try getting into land broking. And that's how I got into real estate, through land.
And you never looked back after that.
Not really, no.
So-
There were times that I felt like quitting, of course, like everyone, but
So you started off by saying, you grew up in Kolaba. So you're a Mumbai boy, like through and through.
no. So I wasn't born in Bombay.
Oh,
I was
okay.
born in Lucknow. My sister was born. I have an elder sister who was born in Mumbai, but I came here. I've done all my schooling from here.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So, like, how Mumbai must have seen a huge change in the time that you've been here, or has most
Mumbai
of it
has seen a huge change. Yes. I think historically, before I was born, and I was born in 1990, right? But I think post 1990, the real boom I think Mumbai saw was the redevelopment of cotton mills, right? That was massive. So if you see Lower Parel what it is today, if you see Worli what it is today, I think before Sea-Link and after Sea-Link, there's a massive difference in Mumbai. The high rises that you see today, a 60-story tower is very normal now. Back in the day, a 60-story, a 40-story was a mega high rise, right? So I think that 2000, post 2009, the Sea-Link was operational in 2009. That 2010 to, that was crazy. I think we saw such a massive boom in terms of construction of high rises with buildings with amenities. Mumbai is one of those few places you'll see property prices are very high, a lakh a square foot in some buildings. 70,000 a square foot is very average for South Mumbai. And you'll see people don't have basic amenities. They have that old lift that you open with your hands, right? They won't have parking. You'll be parking your car out in the open on the footpath. Can you imagine owning a 10 crore house without basic covered parking?
So not all, you're saying not all change in Mumbai has been positive. Some
But
has.
that changed, I'm saying. Now, then you start seeing buildings coming up with amenities, with towers. So you start seeing towers giving podium parking, covered parking, basement parking, towers giving amenities. And which is why the club culture, Mumbai always had a club culture.
Right.
CCI, WIA, Radio
Right.
Club, where people will have their homes, but they would, for recreational purposes, they go to a club. Now I see a lot of people not going to clubs. They have a gym in their own building. So I think this change has happened in the last 15 odd years. Of course, there are anomalies like Hiran and Nani who were making townships since the 1990s, Powai and the outskirts. But those real mega towers we started seeing once the cotton mills started getting redeveloped, once a lot of redevelopment started happening.
Okay. So, you've spoken a little bit about Mumbai, but as India as a country as a whole, where would you put your money on? Which city do you think has the most promise over the next decade?
In terms of rental or capital appreciation?
Capital appreciation.
Capital appreciation, I would always choose, rather than choosing a city blindly, I would choose a city I'm well versed with, because real estate is something that's hyper local. You need to understand the local trends. You can come up with fancy reports, theoretical reports, but till you don't understand the trends yourself, it can get problematic. So I would choose outskirts of a city where I live in. I have control over the property. I can go and check out the property in case of any issue. So look at areas like, so for example, back in the day, I would have put money in Navi Mumbai, right? A satellite town of a financial capital called Mumbai. If you apply the logic anywhere, you'll make money, right? Look at Gurgaon. Gurgaon is a satellite town of Delhi. Gurgaon has done, given the maximum gains in the residential apartment sector in India in the last 4 years, year after year. Nothing has beaten Gurgaon in terms of capital appreciation when it comes to residential apartments. And I think now that's going to happen to Noida, right? Have this same logic. Look at Navi Mumbai, saw crazy gains 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? And we'll see now again with the new airport coming in, right? Alibag, if you put 1 crore in Alibag in 2020, it would be 6 crores right now in 2026, right? You have to understand the fundamentals. Invest in the outskirts of a raging city.
Okay. So by outskirts, you mean like it should be touching that city.
One
So
and a
I'll
half
make
hour
a
drive.
distinction between, say, a Mysore and a Bangalore, which is a good 2-hour drive, versus a Gurgaon and a Delhi, which is touching the border.
Correct.
Is it the same? Like, do you think a Mysore would appreciate as much as a Gurgaon?
Yes. In multiples, yes, not in absolute values. And Mysore has, right? Land in Mysore has exploded because people are sick of traffic in Bangalore. I know people who do up-down, right? In fact, one of the issues with Bangalore, a satellite town tends to solve issues of an existing city, right? If you take Delhi's example, because of the DDA, a lot of high-rises, new constructions weren't allowed. Gurgaon did well because of Delhi's incapability to start regulatory issues, right? Bangalore needs to decongest, which is why Mysore is the blue-eyed boy of Bangalore. And Mysore is going to do well. I'm very bullish on Mysore. But I don't live in Bangalore, so I will not put money in Mysore. Right? I live in Mumbai. So I'll put money in Alibag, Navi Mumbai, Panvel, Mumbai 3.0. If I were living in Delhi, I would put money in Noida. Not Gurgaon right now, because Gurgaon's 2020 I would have put money in Gurgaon. So apply that same fundamental anywhere. 15 years ago, blindly put money in Gachibowli, which is now central Hyderabad almost. But I visited Hyderabad 16 years ago when I wasn't in real estate, and Gachibowli was nothing. It was like a huge field, and I didn't understand development that time. I was like, who will buy here? What is this? And believe me, I was there in Gachibowli 3 months ago. It's honestly better than Bandra Kurla complex, if you ask me. Phenomenal. So just tend to have the little vision, and the fundamentals is apply. Boring fundamentals, how you pick a stock. Same way, pick a location.
So you said you wouldn't put money in Gurgaon now. How do you know when is the right time to stop investing in satellite towns? So I'll give you an example, like Devnahalli in Bangalore, right? It's a small town right next to the airport in Bangalore. During COVID, land prices there were 2,000 to 3,000 a square foot. Now they are 10,000 a square foot. They've exploded like 4 times, 5 times in a matter of 6 years.
Right.
How do you know now is still a good time or not?
Very good question. So, see, nobody knows the future, I'll be honest with you, right? Nobody knows whether that Forex will go to an 8x. But even if that Forex does go to an 8x, if you enter at Forex, you only made 2x.
Yeah.
Right? The guy who's entered before would have made the 8x, but he only made 2x. So, understanding multiples, understanding mathematics, Gurgaon's already given a 3 to 4x. Right? It depends. If you just want a... Gurgaon may still give another 2x multiple, so that makes it 8x for a person who's already at 4x, who entered at 2020, but you only made a 2x. Noida, I feel, has the capacity, because the entry point is still low, right? The entry point is still low. I think Noida can do a 3 to 4x in the coming 6-7 years, which Gurgaon will cap. It has to cap.
So the key there, what I'm taking away is that the entry point should still be
100%.
affordable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So
also,
satellite town
and
with
demand
a
supply. If you keep looking
right.
at the demand and supply, how can you actually look at demand? Because this is a very loosely thrown word. Very easy. Demand you can calculate through RERA, the portal. You'll know exactly how many RERA registered projects are there. I'm giving you a very clinical answer. This is not
Right.
motivational or right mathematical answer. Supply from the RERA website, your state's RERA website, you come to know how many RERA registered projects are there. Right? At least organized supply you'll find out. Right? Demand, you can go to your IGR, state's IGR website, you know, the registration, you pay stamp duty when you buy a property.
Right.
You'll come to know how many immovable properties were sold in that city. Compare the two. It'll give you a 85% accurate data on demand supply.
Okay. And do you think there's any minimum amount one should have? Like, if you had, let's say, 1 crore, would you put it in real estate or stocks?
I would put it in real estate because I understand real estate better, not to undermine stocks. There would be some guys who might just put it in crypto or Bitcoin as well, right? So to each his own. I understand real estate better, which is why I would put it in real estate. But 1 crore is today kind of less for real estate. That's the only issue. Give me 5 crores, I'll definitely put in real estate.
Okay. So, during our parents' time, a house was maybe 5x their average, annual salary. Today, the typical house is 20 or 30 times the average Indian's
Yeah.
salary. So, given that metric, it's obvious that housing and real estate has become more expensive over the years. Do you still think it's a better idea to buy versus rent?
Very good question. Now, first let's talk about affordability. I like to break it down. For example, Mumbai, since we're sitting in Mumbai, let me talk about Mumbai. Mumbai is the world's most unaffordable city to buy real estate. It's 39x of the household's gross income. That means it'll take an entire household 39 years if they were to save 100% of the household income without leverage. New York is at 14x. Right? Manhattan is 14x. So the issue is that people's pay hasn't pay scale. Most people's pay scales haven't really increased that much, right? But the property prices have increased,
Right.
right? So you're not. India is the world is a percentile market. It's not a percentage market. It will be better than the others. That means if in the last 15 years you've not grown in your job, I'm sure the McKinsey partner doesn't think like that. Percentile. If you're still stuck at the 50K salary or you're just growing at 50, 55, that means the residential index is beating you. So you're almost competing with that, right? Same applies to the stock. Or even, let's say, Bitcoin. I'm not a crypto boy at all, but like I know that 10 years ago, crypto would have been, I don't know, Bitcoin would have perhaps been $5,000. Today it's about crossed $100,000. That multiple is beating your salary multiple. So that's one way to look at it, right? Having said that, yes, back in the day, real estate was much cheaper, right? People had multiple properties. Real estate has gotten more expensive, but it will continue to get more expensive.
And the rents have also gone up in
Rents
that,
have
right? Because
drastically
the
gone up.
rent is a proportion to
Of the
your
percentage of the property value.
Right.
But if you see, in spite of that, rents have gone up because in most Western countries, right? Developed mega cities, the residential rental yield per year is 6%. Average, right? India is one of those few places where your residential rent has always hovered in that 2.5 to 3% bracket. 2 to 3% of the annual. So if the property is worth 1 crores, my annual rent will be 2 to 3 crores, right? Right now, post-COVID, we've seen that go up to 4%. So yes, the property value has also gone up.
Right.
And in absolute numbers, the rental yield has also gone up in many places.
Right.
Right? So that's a hit. Second, a rent is a pure expense. It's a pure expense. See, one of the beauties of purchasing a home is you can use leverage, right? And at 8%, a home loan is the cheapest type of loan you can get in the country. So please take it, right? The money that you save, you can invest that in the markets anyways. When you take a rent, right? Use the leverage is cheap, right? So that's one thing. Secondly, with each EMI that you pay towards the property, you're building your equity towards that home.
Right.
Right? If there are 100 EMIs, you pay 10, you own 10 more % of the house. And what happens with rental is the biggest issue is you don't have control. What if your wife is pregnant and you're asked to shift? Right. So it's not just an Excel sheet math. It comes with a lot of emotion. On that logic, you can also rent cars, rent a handbag.
Right.
Live a rented life. But I feel it's to each his own. When I was in my 20s, rent would have been better for me. Now in my 30s now, mid 30s, I have a kid. Buying a home is far more relaxing.
Right.
Right. Additionally, there are a lot of leakages in renting. Right. One must understand this. There are a lot of leakages in renting. If you're the disciplined investor, renting is brilliant. Right. If you're Warren Buffett, renting is for you. Right. But look, 90% of those people who preach renting are not financial samurais. What's going to happen is you'll calculate, okay, the down payment saved, you would put in a lump sum. Okay, that you might do. How many people would actually save the delta between the EMI at 8% and the rental yield, let's say 3%, the 5% every month? How many of you all will actually invest that into SIPs?
They'll spend it.
They'll 100% spend it. Number two, in the comparison, say you're buying a 1 crore house. Ideally, the 1 crore house rent in the comparison should be, the rent of that should be 3 lakhs, which is 25,000 a month. I guarantee you, the same person who's renting will rent a 40,000 a month house.
Right.
He's not going to do a pound for pound rental.
Right.
So these are the massive leakages that people overlook. Very easy to come up with an Excel sheet and,
So speaking of mistakes, we've spoken about what mistakes renters make. What are some of the most common mistakes you've seen home buyers make in India?
Oh, plenty. We need to ask for this. Number one, let's talk about under construction apartments. I think everybody knows that under construction apartments are riskier, right? People don't check the RERA portal. Today, the government has genuinely made real estate more transparent, right? After 2016, and each state has now, RERA is active in each state, right? What RERA has done is, each project needs to get registered with RERA. Now, to register with RERA, you need to disclose everything, believe me. Things like the latitude and longitude of the plot, right? Things like that. A builder needs to also put his passport size photo, his name, his past track record of how many projects he's built, his address, every permission related to the project, right? The number of apartments, the carpet size, the number of garages or parkings. He has to also disclose all the approved plans, everything about the project. Like, assume the project's horoscope is on the RERA portal uploaded. You can just scan a barcode, right? Or just input the project's RERA number onto your state's RERA website to see all those details. Are there any litigations? You can see that. I have not seen anyone do that till date. Don't look at RERA as something that will give you justice, though it does that, but Indian system. Look at RERA as something that gives you transparency. So if say there's a project A, I can see the litigation. Why would I go ahead and buy it? Unless and until I understand the litigation is not serious. Right? I might go to project B. Second thing what RERA has done is 70% of the money you fund the developer goes in a separate designated account, which is used for the project. So fund diversion is not there anymore. Right? So go for RERA registered projects. The odds of the builder actually diverting funds are next to zero, unless he's pulling off some fraud, which is then very easy to kind of punish. Right? So go with RERA registered projects. Okay, project is RERA registered, but please go to the RERA portal and understand the documents. Give it to your lawyer. People save money on lawyers, which is very strange, right? That's one massive mistake. The second mistake is people assume RERA registered projects cannot get stuck. RERA registered project gets stuck all the time. A couple of years ago, a report came out which said that 6 lakh crore homes worth 6 lakh crores are stuck. They're all RERA registered projects.
Right.
Because see, if a builder runs out of cash, he's run out of cash. We see startups going bust. I heard that 90% of restaurants close by 5th year. Restaurants are legal, they close because of cash flow issues. Same with real estate, right? So understand the builder's cash flows, right? A lot of builders have private limited companies. You can understand, basic cash flows from the MCA, right? Understand the delivery. If 5 projects the builders made, go to those 5 projects. Talk to people living inside those societies. Understand their post-sales, experience. Nobody does that.
So, speaking of RERA, there are some projects that can't be registered in RERA. Like there are some restrictions, right? Like if there are less than 8 units per building, or if there is less than certain square feet area.
So certain projects are exempted if there's less than 8 apartments or units, counting all the phases.
Right.
If the plot size is less than 500 square meters, right? That's the second condition. If you're redeveloping the building and only for the existing tenants or the members, and no new sale is being done to an outsider, then it doesn't need RERA. Or if the building has received its occupancy certificate, it's completed before the RERA rule came.
But what about for plotted development? What if each of the plots are like 2,000 square feet?
So it's very tricky. This is tricky, but NA plots, non-agricultural plots, will be part of RERA. They have to get RERA registered. It's tricky.
Regardless of the size?
Yes, regardless of because see, any plotted scheme that you do, 500 square meters is nothing. That's roughly approximately 5,000 square feet. So you look at the total plot area, right? The total plot area is at least the minimum. You get feasibility on a 30,000 square foot plot, and if you're converting into NA, do RERA. But that's the most ambiguous. Agricultural plotting people do without RERA.
Okay.
So if you're doing agricultural layouts, you need not do RERA. That's
okay.
Fine.
But in cities like Bangalore and Delhi, there are a lot of these small boutique builders who build less than 8 units in a building. So they also are exempt from RERA registration.
Regardless, you go to consumer court. I mean, RERA is not the only. You can always go to your actual judicial system is still there. Right. The idea of RERA is that consider it like a tribunal, like a separate judiciary body to give you faster justice.
But you won't be able to do the data check that you were talking about, right? Like you won't be able to see out of these 8 flats, how many are sold.
Yeah, that's correct.
That kind of stuff. Because a lot of the houses in, say, Delhi, in central Delhi.
But now what you can do is, because this fashion of checking has been created because of RERA, you can actually ask the developer, show me your plans.
Okay.
Right? Show me your plans. And anyways, by law, by consumer law, you're supposed to know what you're buying. And they have to furnish you with every document. So you can just find there's no portal for it, but you can physically ask him, show me your plans. So I think a lot of people just take builders by brand value and face value, and people don't want to spend in the legal checks. I've always seen that.
Is there any right age to buy a house, do you think?
No, I don't think it's the right age, but if I were to choose, if you put a gun to my head and say, what's the right age to buy a house, I'll just give you a very vague answer, which is whenever you're ready. Right? Legit whenever you're ready, because to each his own. I would say when you know, number one, where you're settling down. Right? I think most people in their 20s are nomads. You don't know where you're settling down, right? I would say if you have kids, because you don't want to uproot them every time you shift, right? Uh, that could be a cue to buy a house. If you get a big chunk of money in your business through a bonus or through a good year in business, I would say then you can perhaps buy a house. If you're not, you can also invest that in the stocks in equity. But these are some of I think times when you can buy a house.
So
But please make sure you have a house before you retire, because I'm consulting someone who's currently building old age home. Believe me, the type of stories you'll hear, you wish that old couple had a house.
hmm. Do you think old age homes as a real estate proposition is a good like
It's
business
fantastic.
idea?
It's fantastic.
Especially in these satellite towns, I see a
Fantastic.
lot of old age
Old age
homes.
homes, student housing, warehousing. I think they're good. The issue with the Indians is that our investments are very roti kapda makan. Very Indians are obsessed with buying homes. Indians are obsessed. This is how I would break real estate down. All right. Fundamentally, if you want capital appreciation, please go buy land. Nothing will come close to the capital appreciation or land will give you. And land not from a developer, directly from the farmer. Please, that is the key caveat. If you want rental yield, please get into student housing, get into warehouses. Phenomenal, right? Warehousing is boring, which is why it is so lucrative, right? That's why it's so powerful. So if you want good rental, go for student housing. Look at warehouses, senior citizen homes, right? Co-living, right? Co-working. And if you want security, buy a house. That's how to break it down. But I know people who have, in fact, I know a gentleman who owns upwards of 60 homes. He used to be my landlord back in the day.
60. Wow.
Above 60 residential units. And I think that's a strange portfolio to have. Very strange.
But so if you had 10 crores and you had to invest it in real estate, how would you divide it?
So if I have a house of my own, do I have a house of my own in this? Like, am I born with my dad's house, or what's the?
Uh, no. Let's assume you have nothing. You're building from scratch. If you had 10 crores, how would you invest it in real estate?
Got it. So first, given my current age, I have kids. I would, in 10 crores, I would first buy a house for myself and use. So that's outside, but I don't look at that as an investment. So I've depleted 10 crores, and I'll say I'll buy a house that I probably worth a 5 crore home in Mumbai, because that's in South Mumbai. If you want even a 2 bed, it'll cost you minimum 5 crores. I'll buy, say, 5.5 crore home, right? That is again not an investment. I'm looking at it as a long-term security. I'm looking at that as my FD, right? That is to preserve capital, all right, mentally. The remaining 4.5 to 5 crores, because I particularly for me, I don't have a cash flow problem. I would put it all in land.
Farmland.
Farmland straight from the farmer. Every penny ounce of it.
But farmland, the issue with farmland is, you hear a lot of encroachment cases. You hear of a lot of legal cases. Even after you do the due diligence, a lot of the times the farmer's grandson or the farmer's son will come and try to claim on that land that it was sold without their permission, and then you have to fight a legal battle at least for a few years.
Which is why whenever you purchase a farmland, you have to do some checks. So you have to, into a million times, have to do a title search. All right, go to a lawyer. So basically, there are two variables to it. A, he'll go to the sub registrar's office, scan through all the index to, he'll go through all the registered transactions over the last 30 years. We go much beyond that, go 50, since the starting of time, to understand how the property has, the flow of the property. So, changed hands rather. So if A sold to B, B sold to C, C sold to D, suddenly you have F selling to you. Where is the document that shows D sold to F? Right? So you can see that, all right, at the SROs. Second is the same should reflect in the revenue records, in the Sadbara and Fairfars 612 extracts. That summarizes each transaction, right? So your Sadbara and the Fairfar will be read in conjunction, and together, and you'll realize, you can imagine the entire flow of the land ownership from the last 50 to 60 to 100 years, right? That is critical. And then you'll have questions. Hey, but what happened here? What happened here? This guy had 2 kids. Why wasn't the second kid's name written in the sale deed? Right? Okay, let's settle him as well. So you have to do that before you purchase the property. There are people who may come out of the woodwork, but you can totally, it's very solvable. I think I must have transacted over 1,500 acres by now. And in every third transaction, you have random relatives showing up. And if they have a legal claim as per the succession laws, you have to give them some money and get them all onto the conveyance deed, onto the sale deed, so that they can't create an issue later. A lot of times what happens in India is, the biggest cause of dispute is that you would see the males. I've seen this so many times, I can't tell you. A person's, say there's a father, he expired, parents are expired, both father, mother expired, there are 2 sons and 1 daughter. Turns out on the sale deed, 2 sons, the males have sold you the land. When you ask them, where's the sister? They're like, no, we have settled her internally. Now you as a layman will say, okay, fine. And the brothers generally believe that the sisters don't have equal rights, right? Because she is, going to her husband. By law, especially after the 2005 amendment, daughters have equal rights as sons. That means when you buy a property, you only bought 67%. She legally still owns the 1/3. So when someone comes to me like that, I say nothing doing. I want your sister on the sale deed. Can't do the transaction. We explain them the family tree. You can't create your own rules, right? The laws are laid out. People are just ignorant. So that will solve your problems. There could be random claims later, but if those claims don't have any logic or legal backing, then don't worry about it, right? No judge today will, uh, get your land stuck and all that, right? So that is very critical. The second most important thing is to do a government survey of your land, which 9 out of 10 people don't do. So say I buy a land and I see a land, you can see a fence around it. How do you know, as per government records, those are the actual boundaries of that land? So what we do is we do a legit government survey. What that does is, think of it as, it will superimpose the actual government boundaries. The government survey will come and mark the official government boundaries to your land. And you often find that the guy has done the wrong compound. I have seen lands that are 10 meters away, more than 10 meters. You see your land, and after the survey, you find out the real boundaries were inside a nala. This creates disputes with your neighbors, because then the neighbor finds out for 20 years you've actually encroached his space. Right? It shifts on Earth, planet Earth, the surface. The boundary of the... See, today when I buy an apartment, I know there's walls to it. It's in the sky. Lock and key, that's my apartment. Right. But in land, how do you know that fencing is done correctly? That is your actual land. What if you've crept in just 1,000 square meters into another person's land? He has every right to claim it back from you. Government survey will get you your exact boundaries as per government records, which is very, very critical. That nobody does. Number 3, what nobody does is a regulatory check. We've done the legal, we've covered legal, right? Nobody does a regulatory check. What zone is your land in? That happened to me 10 years ago. I lost 60 lakh rupees because of a zonal dispute. Zonal issue, zonal ignorance, I would say. It was my ignorance, my bad. A lot of lands will have either regional plans or development plans. The town planners have come up with zones, which land falls in what zone. And each zone has certain things you can construct, certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. Right? So you need to know the permissible activities within that zone. What if you buy a land which is in forest zone? Can't do anything. Can't construct anything. NDZ, CRZ1, God save you. All your money is down the drain. Right? So I think zonal checking, what you're allowed to construct. I've seen so many clients come up with very ambitious plans. Oh, I want a mad beach house, like 20,000 square foot beach home, and the land is in CRZ1. You can't do anything. The NDZ, you can't construct anything. Right?
What about physical safety in these areas? Like, are the local police departments and all that?
Look, so that's more of a social issue, not a real estate issue. Local safety, look, you chose the area. You're venturing in a jungle, you get bitten by snakes, right? Local safety, enter an area where you think you can actually adjust and settle down. I think that's on you, right? And how you are with the locals. I've seen people enter rural areas for farmhouses in the smoothest way, where they become legends in that village. And I've seen people who enter in a very abrasive manner. It's also onto us. Make sure you give locals work. That is the number one thumb rule. When you're going to a rural area, especially in the holiday home sector, you have to give your infrastructure work to locals. Obviously, the key positions can be, like your architect can be from your city, the interior designer can be from your city, the main project manager who will overlook at the construction can be from your city. But the basic labor can be the gaonwalas. They'll worship you after that. They really look up to you, right? So have some faith, right? Give work to the locals, and believe me, they'll give you results faster than your team from the city, because they understand the local issues better. They understand the government officers better. That way.
So another problem with land, a lot of people, including Nikhil Kamath has said this many times, is that although it may be a great investment, the problem is that it's illiquid. It's sometimes it can take years to sell it and get the cash in hand.
That's a genuine problem.
So how do you, when buying land, how do you avert that?
Yeah, so you can't fight the liquidity aspect of it, right? It's inherent problem. Real estate is illiquid in general. It'll take me at least 6 months. If the market is hot, I can liquidate it in perhaps 2 months. But I know even the buyer will take minimum 2 months to do the due diligence and all that, right? Unlike equity or stocks, I can just, one button
Matter of a second, yeah.
Right? I have the money in the bank account. Only invest. You must have some liquidity with you. Real estate is illiquid. There's nothing you can do about it, and that is a genuine problem. I'm not going to lie, right? That is a genuine problem. But sometimes I've seen, in my own case, I'll tell you, we had a plot of land in Nagpur. We tried selling it, and we had bought it this is family land, right? We had bought it in, I think, late 90s, 1999 or 2000. We had bought 2 plots of land for 1 lakh each, so 2 lakh was the total investment. Nothing happened for years. This was before Nitin Gadkari. Then suddenly Nitin Gadkari came, and he kind of made those mega announcements, metro coming in and Nagpur Improvement Trust, and he did a lot infra-wise. And what happens is real estate prices suddenly go up. It's almost overnight. It's never linear. One announcement comes and just people lose it, right? Some infra project delivered, one zonal change. So we tried selling it in, I think, 2010 we tried selling it. Couldn't sell it due to XYZ reasons. Then we tried selling it in 2016 once. That time because we needed money. I was going through liquidity issues. Couldn't sell it. And thank God for that. because I managed those liquidity issues eventually, we saw the craziest boom in the last 4 years.
Wow.
Right now, that land, 2 lakh investment is become minimum 2.5 crores to
Wow.
3 crores. That's 100 to 150x,
Wow.
right? So,
And all within the last 10 years.
so the fact that it was illiquid was an advantage for me because the asset class made me hold it.
Hmm.
I would regretted selling that in 2016. I would have cried.
Right. I was in a similar situation with Nvidia, but because it was a stock, I was able to sell it. Had I held on to my initial investment in Nvidia,
SoftBank, I mean, they
it
liquidated so much of Nvidia.
right. I bought it in like 2015, and had I held on, it would be worth
Yeah,
15-20 CR
yeah,
today.
yeah. So I think
So
land
yeah,
is,
yeah,
you can't invest it as short term.
right.
Point to be noted. You can't. And guess what? Right now, my Nagpur land is very liquid, but I don't want to sell it because I know Nagpur is, now seeing that mega growth, and who knows?
Now, you know, we've spoken about RERA, and you've also written this book on how to buy a scam-free home. But despite this, have you seen in your 10 years of being an agent, have you seen even reputed builders, scamming people in real estate?
So, first, I would like to chalk out the difference between a scam and mismanagement. Often it's a mismanagement, but you can't call mismanagement a scam. We see startups shut,
Right.
genuine, good, hardworking founders go bust overnight. Is that a scam? No, it's not. It's a mismanagement. Restaurants close all the time. Mismanagement, not an intentional scam. So a lot of times, the reputed builders have delayed projects by even decades. But it's not a scam because they didn't do it purposely. It was unintentional, it was mismanagement. I see a lot of people loosely kind of throwing the word scam. And I've also mentioned that in my book, though. Scam's a part of my title. But I've mentioned that in my book that scam is different from mismanagement. So when you say scam, it's intentional, right? I don't think very big builders would intentionally go out there to scam. And please understand, and I see a lot of influencers talk about scam, scam, scam. I know how tough the regulatory system is. Sudden regulatory change. You bought a land for something and boom, the government has changed the laws. What is the builder supposed to do? He will change his layout. Now the end buyer will think, oh, scam ho gaya. And there'll be 10 finance influencers, oh, scam. But it's not the builder's problem. Like, what happened to Indigo?
Right.
Was it a scam? Or was it mismanagement?
Mismanagement.
Because of the flying hours,
Right.
obviously they could have been well prepared. They could have been prepared because they are operationally excellent, right? So I think mega builders would never want to. It's suicidal, right? But I think what we need is more transparency in the regulations. Absolutely, that is a big issue, and even the biggest developers face that. I've asked from the biggest developer to the smallest, from to a small developer, and I've always asked them what is the most difficult part in real estate, and everyone has said approval. Someone like Niranjan Hirandani, Dr. Niranjan Hirandani, who's a legend, and I look up to him. He said, Mayank, approvals are so difficult.
Right.
I'm like, you are saying that, sir? And he laughed it off. But I know the stress that goes in.
But for someone like entering real estate or buying their first house, would you advise them to go with a reputed builder?
100%. Absolutely 100%. Look, it's too. Look, not dissing small developers, but it's a big chunk of money.
So it's worth the extra premium.
110%.
What about you spoke about student housing earlier. if would you recommend that as someone, if someone's getting into the real estate market, just starting out and is very adventurous, wants to make money? You mentioned student housing and warehousing as great investment opportunities. Let's talk about student housing first. How easy is it to get into the business? What are the pros and cons?
Student housing is, if you intend to build hostels, it's just like a real estate project eventually, right? What do you have to do? A, you have to buy land, right? If you're being asset heavy, right? Old school way, you'll buy land. By the way, I love student housing. I think it's really cool, right? If you have funding, you buy land, do approvals, and then you start constructing, right? The rentals, let's talk about the advantages first of student housing. The rental yield is at least 10%. And my residential rental yield was what, 3%, which is now in some good buildings 4%. So it's 2.5 times more income, student housing. And I'll tell you why. Here you sell per bed. It's even better than Airbnb. It can go up from 9% to even 15, 16, 18% rental income. I'll tell you why. Airbnb sell per, typically when you do Airbnb, it's not per bed, it's always room wise, right? 6 people are going, so you have 3 rooms, right? In holiday home segment, and you always look at rooms. In student housing, it's bed. I can put even 10 beds in a 3 BHK, right? The good thing is students can rough it out. So that's an advantage for a operator, right? As long as you give them basic luxury, right? Affordable luxury, I like to call it. So the rental yield is very high, right? The cons, right? Sorry, another pro is, apart from the rental yield being high, you can make a lot of money in extras like F&B. A student housing needs tiffin services. You can extract money there. Laundry services, right? You can maybe even get into like small tuition services. So there are various ways to have different revenue avenues when you do student housing. Your LTV may be high, right? Now, one more thing. The current demand that we have, right, as per Anurag reports, is that the current hostel ecosystem can only supply up to 20% of the actual demand, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So cities, how many how many people do you know? Okay, how many builders do you know who are into student housing?
Zero.
And how many builders do you know who are into residential homes?
Everyone. Yeah.
See, the gap is already there. Massive gap in supply, right? You can make immense money, right? If you're very structured. Now the cons, the biggest con is the land cost. You can also lease it, right? But still a cost. The issue is a lot of colleges are in center of the city. Warehousing may be advantage because warehousing is always on the outskirts, so the land for warehousing is always cheaper. Imagine Meethi Bai College. You'd want to have student housing next to it. You die land in that Juhu Andheri belt. So that's one issue. The land cost is very high, right? The second issue is student housing is seasonal. The demand is seasonal. You may not have demand in the December months or in the summer holiday months at all. So you have to kind of,
But isn't that factored
yeah,
into
you have
your
to
rent?
factor that in, right? You have to factor that in, right? The third con is the regulatory challenges, permissions, and all that, which any real estate development has, right? Yeah, so overall, I think student housing is, I would still say that, a good, quirky option because the demand supply gap is massive, massive, right? Coming to warehouses, right? You said to also address warehouses.
Yeah.
Warehouses, what I really like about warehouses, constructing a warehouse it takes no time, right? Approvals for it will take longer, right? Land is cheaper because warehouses are always in the outskirts, right? I would like to ask you a question. Can you tell me which size right? Which warehouse size is the most in demand?
Inside the city or outside?
Wherever, like assuming because outskirts warehouses are, you know, more in demand.
Like total carpet area of the warehouse or the
Yeah,
land
like
area?
give me a rough carpet area where people really would that sweet spot would do well. One carpet area spot.
I have no idea, but I'm going to guess like 20,000 square feet.
No, not at all. Above a lakh.
Wow.
63 to 65% transactions in the mega cities in Delhi, Bombay, and all have happened. In the transactions have happened above 1 lakh.
1 lakh square feet.
Yeah. What does that mean? Bigger warehouses are more stable because better tenants. And Amazon's not going to take 10,000 square foot or 20,000. Amazon wants 2 lakh.
But doesn't
1
Amazon
lakh.
have its own warehouse?
No, they also lease.
Okay.
And third party logistics, delivery, right? DHL, right?
Right.
All of them have above 1 lakh. What happens in that is you have long lease periods, right? You have 15 years. You know, someone like a delivery.com is not going to default on its lease. You have 15 years of cash flow coming in at 8%, 9%. Right? That's more than an FD. Consider that as dividends coming in.
Yeah. Plus there'll be land appreciation.
Land appreciation will be significant because it's on the outskirts anyways. Right?
But there are only so many Amazons and DHLs, right? It's difficult for someone to put in that much money.
Again, the
and
demand in warehousing is far greater than the supply of grade. Far greater.
Even for the big players.
Absolutely.
So there are many people, many businesses out there who want over 1 lakh square feet and are just not getting it.
Barring 1 lakh, even 20,000, 10,000, the overall demand for grade A warehousing is more than the supply. So it's a very, again, from a demand supply gap. Again, question, how many warehousing builders do you know?
None.
Versus how many residential?
Everyone.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think these quirky asset classes, this is the future of real estate, right? I keep telling people the reason we started doing well was because we were one of the first white-collared people aggregating land in the outskirts. It was a bluer ocean. I could have been one of the brokers in Mumbai that time. Everyone's a broker in Bombay. There are 1 lakh brokers in Bombay. Too much competition, too much supply of brokers. Right? When I started working in Karjat, I was one of the few people who wanted to do things in a structured way. Easier to carve a niche. Right? Vis-a-vis a Mumbai broker who struggled with clashes. One client is speaking to 10 brokers in Mumbai for the same property. So think of it like that, right? As a developer doing warehousing, you have lesser competition. It is more unstructured. You will grow faster because there's less fishes in the sea, less sharks in the sea. Believe me, the type of competition.
It's a boring business, but it pays off.
Fantastic business. But they're pros, right? Building a warehouse it's much faster than building a tower.
Right.
Boom. The turnaround time is faster.
Right. What about Airbnbs? In recent times, there's been a huge explosion in the demand for wellness, farm stays, and
I'm personally not the biggest fan, unpopular opinion, not the biggest fan of Airbnbs because I think it gives you, it doesn't give you that much rental yield that people claim to. Because the maintenance of a Airbnb villa, let's stick to a villa first, is brutal. You will die maintaining a villa. That is a white elephant. So maintenance cost is very high, right? That's something that takes away from the net profit, right? Airbnb, you have to be very smart about it. I think I would lean towards a warehouse or a student housing option over an Airbnb for sure. Airbnb will give you 5-6%, right? If you're doing it very well, net, right? 6% net you can make in an Airbnb. I know in Bali, let's stick to India. Right? In Bali, you can get as high as 14% in Airbnb because of the market dynamics. Bali super hot, like everyone wants to travel there, right? But in India, even in Goa, I deal with a lot of builders who are doing Airbnb, you get 6% there, right? 6% doesn't excite me. Doesn't really excite me. I'd rather just go for land capital appreciation. But when you start talking 8-9%, that suddenly becomes more than the FD. It becomes more than bonds. It starts exciting me.
And then Airbnb is a job, right? You get 6-9%, but you have to maintain it. You have to talk to the guests.
And it's
you
not
have to
boring.
reply to guests.
There's marketing involved in that.
Yeah.
Warehousing, 8 tenant aaya, done. I can sleep for 15 years. If my property is, for example,
is that the typical lease period in warehousing?
It depends. There's no typical lease period, but yeah, bigger companies want longer leases, right? So try to and one more thing, the lease, depending on the negotiation, will keep increasing every year, every 3 years by 5%, 10%, whatever. Right. So that's another thing. Today, if my rent is say 1 lakh a month, next year should be 1,05,000, and 5% increment every year. So.
But typically these are multi-year leases as opposed to residential, which are like 11 month.
Absolutely.
11 months.
Much longer. Absolutely.
Okay. And since you spoke about Airbnbs and Bali and Thailand and all of that, if someone's getting into real estate right now, do you think there is scope, like as an agent, do you think there is scope to sell houses abroad to Indians?
There is. The only issue is closure. Closing is difficult. I'll tell you why. No one's going to close without looking at the property. Let's be honest. Now, when you generate a lead in, say, January for, say, Bali, there are very few. I don't even think there's a direct flight to Bali. The client may see your ad on Instagram, Meta, Google, get super excited, impulsive. He may be drunk at 11 p.m., sees your ad, gives you his number as a lead. From the time you speak to him to the time he gives you a date to actually visit the Bali property, he's not going to fly next weekend to visit it. It's Bali. Like, there's a lot of logistics, right? That impulse will die out. Versus selling something in your own city,
where they can go and see it.
Yeah. Instead, try selling Dubai. It's still easier because it's just 3 hours. 4-hour flight, direct flight from most places, at least to the west coast of India, right? Bali is far. Thailand, again, that's the only problem with Thailand and Bali is the site visits don't happen that easily, right? So that's one issue from a sales perspective. The impulse really dies out. And then people start thinking, oh, look, why Bali? I go there maybe once in 2 years, once in a year. Let me just enjoy in a hotel. The amount of money I'll spend on maintaining that house,
right?
I'll just enjoy in a hotel. And with the hotel, I can just do new hotels every year. And you're not bound to one destination then. So that's the thing.
So if somebody dies without a will, how does their property get divided?
So they die interstate, that means
dying
without a will. Now, it depends which religion he's from and what the gender is. There are many permutations and combinations. So what do you want to?
Let's go with, since you said religion, let's go with Hindu.
So let's look at, I'll do Hindu. I'll need some. Can I use a whiteboard? It'll be easier because I have to show the entire. If someone can just point to the.
Sure.
If you're talking about a Hindu person dying, again, gender is very different, right? There's a separate succession for males and separate for females, right? The key distinction between the two being, when a female dies, you also look at the origin of the property. How did she get it, right? I'll come to that later. Let's for now look at a Hindu male dying without a will, which means dying interstate, right? Now, it's going to be governed by the Hindu Succession Act. So each religion is different, right? So first, we divide relatives in classes. So first will be class 1, right? Class 1 will include the male's mother, not father, mother, children, right? And children of predeceased children. That means it's different from grandchildren, right? Children of a dead child, right? So there are 2 examples I'll give you. So example 1 is, this is the dead male, right? So say the dead male has and wife. very important, wife as well, right? Class 1 will have mother, wife, children, and children of predeceased children, right? So I'll give you an example. So say if the male is dead, he had a wife, he had son 1, son number 2, right? And let's say he had a mother who's alive, right? Now mother is class 1, wife is class 1, children are class 1, children of dead children are also class 1. Now let's say son 2 is dead, but he has one daughter and one son, right? Now what's going to happen is the property will be divided into 25% equal shares after the 2005 amendment, right? So remember, between the sons and daughters, it's equal. Anyways, now this is your class 1 heirs. They each have 25%. The wife gets 25%, son 1 gets 25%, son 2's, this point to be noted, this share will be split into 12.5.
The same law will apply.
Yeah, and 12.5. This share, they will not get 20, 20, 20, 20, 20.
Right.
And the mother will also get 25%. That is class 1. Class 2 is siblings, not cousins, and father, right? But here's a tricky part. It happens row wise. All right, I'll give you an example. So if the father is alive, right? If the father is alive, say there's a dead male, right? And he has a father who's alive. Now, it'll only go to class 2 if no one from class 1 exists, right? You don't have class 1, everyone's dead, or there's no class 1 at all, right? He was never married, so he didn't have wife, children, and his mother died, right? So father is alive, he has a brother and he has a sister, right? If the father is alive, 100% of the property will go to the father. That's why I'm saying row wise, because father's first row always, right? If the father is dead, then the property gets split 50-50 amongst the brothers and sisters, the Hindu male. Now, if there's no class 1 or class 2, we go to agnates. What are agnates? Agnates are, since you're talking about a Hindu male, agnates are relatives linked to the male side. Male side, all right? The idea of this rule is it should be in the same family first, the degree of relatives. And this is decided by the degree of relatives, all right? So for example, it could be your father's, remember your father is already dead because class 2 doesn't exist. So it could be your father's brother, right, relative male side, or father's, for example, brother's son. This would mean your chacha, and this would mean your chacha's son. But the closest agnate gets your entire property. This is not split equally. So for instance, if you calculate degrees, your father's brother is 3rd degree relative, father's brother's son is 4th degree, right? Because you go from your father to his father to the son, which is the father's brother. And there's an additional, because he came later. Naturally, he's your father's son. This is a 4th degree relative. So this is a closer agnate. That's why your father's brother will inherit 100% of your dead male's property. This is only when there's no class 1, no class 2. Now, what if there's no agnate as well? Then there's something known as cognates, which is relatives, mother's side, mother of father's side, right? Again, Again, it could be your mother's brother or mother's brother's son. Same logic applies. The closest relative degree, with a degree calculation, will get your 100% of the property. So in this, if you have your mama, like relative, your mother's brother versus your mother's brother's son, your mother's brother will get it because he's third degree. So your mama has a bigger right, like he stands a higher chance to gain 100% of your property over your cousin, who's your
Obviously.
mama's,
Right.
because it's third degree and fourth degree. Now, if you don't have class 1, class 2 agnates or cognates, then the property goes to the government. It has to go somewhere.
And what happens in your class 2 if the mother is alive?
No, mother is class 1. So if mother is alive, then class 2 doesn't come only, then everything goes to mother.
Uh-huh.
It's class. This is activated if none of these exist.
No.
This is activated if none of this exists.
No, I'm saying mother of the deceased person. If she
Yeah,
is
that's the
alive.
mother, no? Mother of the dead male.
Okay. Oh, so she only gets 25%, but
No.
if the father is there, then he gets 100%.
No. So say if there's no wife, there's no son, right? Say for a single bachelor, if he dies, property is on his name, 100% of the property goes to his mother. Father doesn't get anything.
If
Father's class 2.
Okay.
Property can't be divided between classes.
Okay. So then mother is given the preference.
Yeah, because she's the only class 1.
Oh, okay. So the priority is class wise.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's class. That's why it's called class. So if a person who has a dead wife, right, a grandchild, the grandchild will get the 100% of the property, right? Or the son will get 100% of the property. Father is class 2, so he's not getting anything.
Wow. This is
It's not that straightforward. Where you
yeah, and it's not expected. Like, I would imagine that if a bachelor were to pass away,
Everything
his
goes to his
property
mother.
will get 50-50 between his parents.
Mother. 100% to the mother. Then the mother later can
Give
that,
it.
Yeah,
Right.
gift to his dad.
Right. But she may or may not want to. That's her choice.
Yeah.
Wow.
And after the 2005 amendment, sons and daughters are same, equal share. And again, you can't mix the classes. Now let's talk about Hindu female dying intestate, which means dying without a will, right? What's going to happen with her is, first, if she dies, the property is husband and children, which includes son, daughter. Notice there's no mother here. In the male, it was same.
But
as
there was the
class one.
mother. Yeah.
There was a mother as well. Here, there's no mother. Property gets equally divided. Consider this as class 1. Right? Now, if this is not there, if these don't exist, then we just don't jump to class 2. Then we look at where did she get the property from. We get the source of how she got the property. That's not there in males. Right? Now, so for example, if the source 1 was this female had got her property, she had inherited her property from her parents. Then the property goes to her parents' side.
Goes back.
Yeah. The husband doesn't get anything. Point to be noted, nothing. He's dead anyways, right? Husband's family doesn't get anything. So husband's family doesn't get anything. Again, if there was a son, then the son would have gotten 100% of the property. This gets activated only if these don't exist. Right? So if she doesn't have a husband, she doesn't have a child, say she's not married, right? Then the only way she would actually get her property would be her parents, so it goes back to her parents. Now, if she say she was married, but she never had children, or children are dead unfortunately, or her husband is dead, right? If the source is her husband had given her the property, right? She inherited through her husband's death, or her in-laws, right? The source of property was through her in-laws. Then the property goes back to the husband's family. And her parents don't get anything. Now, source number 3 is if she acquired the property herself. If she went, got the property herself, bought it herself, right? Then right? Husband and children, number 1. Number 2, if they don't exist, husband's heirs. We already know how to, if husband's dead, then we already know how to plug the husband's heir in the Hindu mail.
Right.
Right? Husband's heirs, then parents. Then we look at father's heirs, mother's heirs, and then government. So that's how it is. It varies with gender and it varies with religion.
So in the female, it matters where
source
where the
matters.
property came
And
from.
rightfully so. The idea to do that is, if I have given, if the husband's family is given the property, it can't jump non-blood.
Right.
So that's how.
And this is just for Hindu people. It's complete. These laws don't apply if person is of
There are
another
differences,
religion.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So each thing is India is a secular country, no matter what people say. The laws are extremely secular. Yeah. So the succession laws. That's why, once if you want to avoid everything, just make a will. Right? Because the odds of your property going into a dispute are a lot. You've seen the permutation combinations.
Right.
Right? So odds are a lot. And with more family members, believe me, it gets more nuanced.
I think everyone in India knows somebody who's either involved in a property dispute themselves, or they know someone else who is involved in a property dispute.
Absolutely.
And that is one thing that is common to all social stratas of society also, whether it's in the urban elite or the rural,
Absolutely. Nobody also wants to let go. It's such a big amount.
Yeah. For doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So thanks for explaining the the inheritance in so much detail. So this has been really helpful and insightful. But before we go, I just want to ask one pressing question, which a lot of my friends and I'm sure a lot of people in India have, is that when they're renting a place, this whole podcast has been about buying a place. But when single people are renting a place, they, especially women, have a lot of trouble getting a place to rent. How do they improve their chances, or how do they make sure they're able to get a place to rent?
Denying someone rent because of their gender is unconstitutional, right? And you can actually get legal remedy instantly. That's a massive, it's highly unconstitutional, right? But nobody has time today, right? If you are denied rent basis your caste, gender, marital status, you can take genuinely serious action, and in a lot of cases it's like a non-bailable offense.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very, very serious offense, but nobody has time to actually go to the police and do the entire judicial jugglery and jumping around. But if you're society, if the landlord is okay, also what happens many times, people don't tell them to get proof that, you can just say, hey, listen, I've given it to somebody else. That's why people don't get into trouble, because you don't tell them, hey, listen, I'm not giving you the house because you are a lady or something like that, because you're a bachelorette or a bachelor, right? They have smoother ways to say no, which is why a lot of these cases don't end up becoming police cases, right? But it is what it is. India is, I think each country has its problems. I find it very extremely stupid that bachelors and bachelorettes find it hard to get homes on rent. It's not like married people don't fight, argue, make noise, and party, right? But you know how it is. But it is difficult for bachelors. Having said that, to get homes on rent, and
But
it
there
is gonna
are
be
but
like
there
that.
are legal remedies. I mean, if they really
It's
want, they
unconstitutional.
can.
Yeah, but nobody has time.
Nobody has time.
Nobody has time. I just look the amount of time I'll waste in fighting that guy. I'll have to prove that he discriminated me basis my gender,
Right.
right?
That's a
Or my marital status.
yeah. And you're renting a place maybe because you don't have the means anyway to take somebody to court. And
Look,
all
in
of
that much time,
yeah.
I'll just find a house on rent.
Yeah. Right. And also, like, societies, I read in your book that, some societies try to discriminate. There was a very interesting example of how in a society in Chennai, some of the women in that society said that they can't see a single male in a swimming pool, but they're okay with married men swimming in the same swimming pool.
That is just so strange, right? It's so strange. So, but
So
look,
similar
people
concept, just
yeah.
like societies can't discriminate, landlords cannot
But look,
discriminate
today's
again.
society can't. I think the problem with society members, they think they are chief ministers, so they have to get rid of that megalomaniac. Half of them are megalomaniacs, right? Some sort of power. You can't make unconstitutional, illegal rules. You can't pass them as resolutions,
Right.
right? Small things, like, for example, in Maharashtra, the transfer premium is when, if I sell you a property, right, the society has to change your name in their records, right? The membership, you're a member of the society. So as per the legal act, right, you can't charge more than 25,000 rupees as transfer premium in Maharashtra, right? Now that's a act supersedes everything. It's a law. Today, me being a chairman, I can't pass a resolution in the AGM stating that, oh, we pass a resolution that we can charge 10 lakhs for transfer fees. Unanimous decision. Not allowed. You can't make illegal rules. It's not your country. It's not a country. You can't pass ridiculous rules that are discriminatory towards someone. You can't say, oh, bachelors are not allowed. You can't pass an unconstitutional rule.
Right.
So you can't. It's not a mini country.
Right.
I think societies tend to forget that.
Right. You're making a society, not a country.
Exactly.
You can't make your own country.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Mayank. Thanks for sharing all this knowledge with us. I'm sure all the viewers are more informed. And if they want to get more informed, please go and read this book, How to Buy a Scam-Free Home. It has all of what we've discussed and much more in great detail and depth. I've read it, and I will read it again when I go to buy a house. Cheers.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.